What's up? I finished Schopenhauer's first essay, which is on the freedom of will and the two fundamental problems of ethics. And that's all I wanted from this book right now. I have not read the second essay because I am not really interested in the origins of morals as of right now. I will get back to it at some point, but not anytime soon. This was my first Schopenhauer work, and I really liked the way he can articulate his thoughts really well in this. I could follow it with like a decent bit of focus, and I could not read this in like busy environments, but it's still a really easy book, as I would say. It's not too hard to understand what he's trying to say. There is some good bit of repetition in here, but I feel like it's pretty necessary with what he's arguing for and with the way people necessarily argue against this. But yeah, it's just a really good book, and let's get into it. So first, Schopenhauer says that there are three kinds of freedoms. So the first is a physical freedom, yes, a physical freedom, which is is your body restrained in the way that is something hindering you from doing what you really want to. The second is intellectual freedom, which is also really similar to the first one. It's just is there an external hindrance that is not allowing you to choose what to do, is what he's saying. It's just like the freedom of choice in the sense that it's still controlled by your will, but is also like you're choosing to do something. Is there something preventing you from choosing? Which is what like the freedom part of it is. If nothing's preventing you from choosing, then yes, you have intellectual freedom. Really different from the actual freedom of will, which is moral freedom, as Schopenhauer says it. This is the actual freedom of will, as most people refer to it as. And what Schopenhauer really emphasizes in this one, and he comes back to it a lot, is people using the argument of I can do what I will as their way of saying that freedom of will exists. This is a circular argument, obviously. I can do what I will, but what wills? And then people go, oh, I choose what to will, but how do you know what to choose? Or like, what's willing you to choose to will? Like, what's behind you? You're saying your will, and what's behind your will? It's circular, doesn't work, obviously. And he comes back to this like many times. It's like incessantly mentioned, and yeah, but he's just like, it's a whole thing. It like just disses on it like a good bit, and then he just moves on. So then he defines freedom of will as like in simpler terms, it is just the ability to do otherwise, as a lot of people use it right now. But as Schopenhauer described it, Schopenhauer was a studier of determinism, which is basically that everything is predetermined and you can't really do anything to change the outcomes. You're not a driver of change, you're just an observer. And what Schopenhauer said was that it's the absence of necessity, which is like what the freedom of will is. And so what's necessary is that whatever is necessary comes from a sufficient ground, is what I saw it as. I might be wrong, but it's what comes from a sufficient ground, as it's grounded in something, that something caused it, right? Of the freedom, like true freedom of will, cannot have a sufficient ground, because it's technically then caused by that, right? It's caused by that, and it's just determined again. So true freedom of will would have to mean that it's not caused, it's not affected by anything external to itself. So that means it's indifferent to the environment, to people, anything. It's just indifferent to the whole world, and it only relies on itself to choose. This is obviously not the case. This is very obviously not the case, and to argue in such a manner would be just wrong in general, I would say. But yeah. And then he goes on to talk about self-consciousness. Self-consciousness, I would say, is it's not necessarily like a driver of change. Obviously, it doesn't, as Schopenhauer says, it doesn't really do anything. It's more, it's necessarily just a way of perceiving the world and perceiving yourself and being conscious and aware of your decisions that you make. And as Schopenhauer, that's interesting. But as Schopenhauer says, it's a projector of reality, and you are necessarily just observing it. You don't really do anything. You're trapped, but and you're just like looking at this projector, just projecting the real world, I guess. And that's all that's all what self consciousness is. Self And it really doesn't tell you anything about your interactions with the external world, because your consciousness is now interacting with other consciousness. So self consciousness really doesn't delve into that. It doesn't delve into the relationships with other objects and stuff. So self consciousness will not be able to tell you anything about the freedom of will in this sense. So then, to finish it off, to like completely set in stone why freedom of will doesn't exist according to him, is self-consciousness. There's three types of reactions. He comes up with three types of reactions, and the first one is just a mechanical or a physical reaction, which is caused by a mechanical or physical cause. These are inorganic reactions, so that would mean it's just this chair moves and hits the door and the door closes. That's all it is. That's really all it is. That's one type of reaction. The second type of reaction is a stimulus reaction. It's a stimulus-based reaction. So this would happen in plants or in animals, where they're receiving stimuli, like the plants, like they grow around like something blocking them, or the animals, as they smell something and they're like, oh, I gotta chase it and eat it, I guess, or something like that, something to that effect. And everything that they do is governed by the external world, and they only live in the present. That is to say that they cannot think about the past or the future. They only live in the present and do what that they're just constantly reacting to the stimulus. The last one is motives. He says that sure that humans are really way more complex than normal animal or like other animals. That does not mean they're exempt to just not being a relationship between a motive or like a cause and the effect that it produces. So he says that there is a cause and an effect, but the human's minds are so intricate and so complex that one really loses the path in between, and you could just come to a reaction that might look on the surface to be completely unrelated to the cause, but it really isn't. So humans can think about it. They can think in the past, they can think in the future, they can think about it, and they can think about the present. So it's just really more an expansive mind. And so what he says, these causes, the motives are the causes in this sense. And these motives, they're just caused by our character, which is set, kind of set as soon as you're born, I guess. And you have this original character that you have, and then the external world also affects you. So the motives are products of that. They're nothing else. They're just products of that. And there's a lot of motives, and then they clash around in your consciousness, I guess. And the one that prevails is basically what the will carries out in the form of a deed, to complete the action. And he gives an example for this as, let's say a man comes out of work and just looking around, and he's getting a lot of motives or like wishes. Or he also clarifies that wishing is not willing. Wishing is just a motive in a sense. It's just something that, oh, I could do this. What you really do is willing. Wishing is not the same thing. So he says that one could wish to just go home, settle down, calm down, sleep, and all that. One could just go to watch a movie, something like that, or one could just like sell everything and go live in the woods, right? And so there are these motives now. Most likely, if it's just a normal chill dude, he's going to just pick the first one. He's like, I'm just gonna go home, chill out, and rest, right? This is willing. Now, these were motives that are caused by the external world and his character, and what he wills is caused by him. Like, not, or maybe he's just too lazy, he's tired after work. There's like these lot of motives, they clash around in his consciousness, and they point him to this direction, and that's the only direction he can go in because his will is dependent on these motives. And there's just these internal desires that point him to that, and that's how he defines the willing as it's happening, because you don't really necessarily you don't choose. It's an illusion. It's the illusion of choice, right? You don't necessarily choose to go home. It's just motives clashing around in your brain that are just making you do that. You didn't have any part to play in it because you are just necessarily just an observer of reality. You don't really have a part to play except to watch. He says, and there's a lot of ways people have gone about this, that you can, there's a quote that I've heard and read many times over. It's like, you can do what you want, you can do what you don't want, but you can't want to do what you don't. You can't want, like, you can't want to want what you don't want. Hold up, let me pull it up real quick. I don't think I'm quoting it that well. Let's see. Yes. You are free to do whatever you desire, but you're not free to choose what you desire, basically. You're not free to choose your wants. That's all I wanted to say. And, well, that is... I'm still gonna withhold thoughts for now, but I would pretty much... I've always been, like, not a non-believer in the freedom of will. I guess I've never seen it as a possible cause, but that is why I want to read books about why free will exists, in the sense. But yes, that is what I had to say. And then he concludes, obviously, that freedom of will does not exist. And that is what I have to say about Arthur Schopenhauer's the first essay on the freedom of will. I will definitely get into some of his other works. I have heard I've barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to do here. However much Schopenhauer might be like, Schopenhauer might be like smart and articulate in his thoughts about the freedom of will, this guy is certainly not the best guy ever. So he has this essay called On Women, and this essay is genuinely like one of the most horrific pieces of literature probably ever made. Just constantly just women should have no rights and all that. It's horrible stuff, really. But this guy, incredible misogynist, but he is still really good at the concept of the freedom of will. So I will get into Schopenhauer later, but right now, I am currently a bit ways through Malcolm X's autobiography. I'm like halfway through that one. And then I have just recently started The Republic by Plato. I've barely started. I'm like 30 pages in. Yeah. Those are the books I'm reading right now. I also have a book called Cosmos by Carl Sagan. That is also what I'm reading. I'm kind of a mood reader in that way. And I'm also like halfway through Count of Monte Cristo. Absolutely beautiful book, by the way. Highly recommend, obviously. That is one book that I will be taking my time with because I need time to like sit on it for a bit before I get to the next part. And yeah, that's about it. What I have lined up next is, what do I have lined up next? I don't think I have it here. I want to get into Brandon Sanderson. That is definitely something I want to get in. My friends are telling me to read Aragon as well. I might get into that. But on the philosophy side of things, I have a few. I have Nietzsche. Nietzsche is one I'm interested in right now. And then I have a few other books here as well. I have a few Camus. I'm still getting through Camus. I don't think I'm gonna go to Camus for a bit now, but yeah. Just relaxing through SATs and then now AP exams. Not too heavy works. That's for summer. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I have a few other videos planned up. And one of them is about this book I read called Tender is the Flesh, which is really interesting. And then I also read Project Hail Mary for the movie that's releasing today, actually. As I'm filming this, it's gonna release today, and I am really excited for it. So I finished that one, and then I finished Tender is the Flesh. So both videos will be out pretty soon. Yeah, that's all I have to say. See you all.